This episode is a special encore presentation of Work Trends. Welcome to the Work Trends podcast from Talent Culture. I'm your host, Megan M. Biro. Every week, I interview interesting people who are reimagining work. And be sure to check out our Work Trends Twitter chat events calendar located at talentculture.com on the podcast page. Welcome to the Talent Culture Work Trends podcast. During today's episode, we are going to be talking about why so many of us shoot for our foot instead of the stars. Yes, we're talking about self-sabotage and how to stop doing it. There are millions of ways we self-sabotage and a million reasons for doing it, but the root of it comes back to evolutionary biology. Our brains are programmed to receive a hit of feel-good dopamine when we achieve goals, but we're not that good at discriminating between the good feeling of achieving a goal and the good feeling of avoiding something threatening. Of all the traits you didn't think you'd sarcastically thank your ancestors for, dodging an assignment for just a few minutes of Facebook probably wasn't on the list. This is especially insidious in the workplace, where we set our goals high even as we set our own tripwire. We all do it, each one of us, and over time, yours and mine, our behaviors are adding up. Today's guest, Dr. Candace Setti, says it's not a question of if we self-sabotage. The better question is how we respond to it and whether or not we fight it. Self-sabotage compounds itself and gets stronger and stronger if we don't stop it in its tracks and push it away. So if you're guilty of one too many rounds of just 5 more minutes, please, that game, pull up a chair and settle in and listen, because you have a lot to learn from this episode. But before we get into our Q&A, I'd like to introduce you to today's guest. As a therapist, author, speaker, coach, and former yo-yo dieter, Dr. Candace is committed to helping others achieve health and wellness while gaining self-confidence, stopping all the self-sabotage, and achieving their goals. Author of the Self-Sabotage Behavior Workbook, Dr. Candace maintains a private practice in San Diego, California, where she works one-on-one with people, helping them to understand their maladaptive behaviors and thought patterns while replacing them with a healthier perspective that allows them to overcome self-sabotage and actually thrive in their lives. She's also the author of Shatter the Yo-Yo and is a featured contributor to numerous blogs, including, get this, MyFitnessPal, Aptive, Beachbody, and she's appeared on Fox 32 Chicago, Las Vegas Morning Blend, CBS 8 Morning Show, NBC Palm Springs, and eHealth Radio Network. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Now, where are you today?
I am in San Diego, California.
Lucky lady.
I would typically say sunny San Diego, California, but it's not very sunny today.
Well, I share that. I'm looking out my window in my lady cave here in Portlandia, and lo and behold, it's raining.
Yeah, well, it's not raining here, but, any day that's not sunny here, we're all a little concerned. So.
Oh, totally. So listen, Dr. Candace, let's start with the basics. What do we mean when we say self-sabotage?
Well, from a very, very simplistic standpoint, I like to say it's standing in your own way. It's, the idea of, there's a famous quote that's attributed to somebody in this space. That's the idea of saying, it's like knowing exactly what you want and then doing everything you can to make sure that doesn't happen. So it's really preventing you, actions that you take that prevent you from achieving what you want. So really, again, simply standing in your own way. And the concept is very odd, right? Why would anyone do that? And yet everybody does it. It's one of those things that, even when I talk to people and I bring the subject up, they all go, oh, yeah, I totally do that. Like it's almost a joke, right? That I do that. But it's a way that people actively engage in behaviors that stop them from achieving what they want.
How do we differentiate between giving ourselves a bit of the necessary forgiveness after a grueling day, for example, and let ourselves off the hook for essential tasks? Like, how do we do this better? Because clearly, you're right. We say, oh, yeah, it's no big deal, but we're all doing this. Literally, it's like bizarre.
Well, talking about like differentiating the idea of kind of letting yourself off the hook versus giving yourself a little bit of break. I mean, really, I think it's about purpose and outcome, right? What is the purpose of the behavior and what is the outcome of the behavior? Are you giving yourself a break because, your body needs to rejuvenate and replenish and, it's energizing and it's helpful to you and it's ultimately moving you towards your goal in the long run by, giving you back some energy and some focus? Or is it self-sabotage based where it's out of fear or avoidance or, discomfort or, some of these other root causes of self-sabotage? So you really need to look at what the purpose of that behavior is and what comes of it, right? What is the outcome of it? By letting yourself off the hook, are you refreshed and rejuvenated the next day, or are you right back in the same spot? So what's happening? Why is it happening? And what's the outcome of what's happening? Probably is how you would differentiate between those two things that could be very subtly different.
So tell us, why do we fall into patterns of self-sabotage at work?
Oh gosh, so many reasons. Where to begin? Fear, comfort, self-doubt, anxiety, just poor self-esteem. I mean, so many reasons, but almost all of it is habitual, right? It's habits, and habits that develop and ultimately reinforce themselves. So they set you up to create self-fulfilling prophecies, things that we can't even disprove because we haven't gathered the evidence to do so, right? We procrastinate and we do that enough and it becomes a habit, and we convince ourselves that we can only work under pressure or with the time sensitivity. And because that's all we do, we have no way to disprove it. So we just get stuck in that habit loop. This is what I do. I'm a procrastinator. I put things off to the last minute. I work better under pressure. And again, we get stuck in that cycle. So it very easily creates a pattern, which is part of the problem, right? Unless we look at it and challenge it, it falls into place that way.
Now let's take a short break to get an update from our advertiser, First Up. Your employees face a constant barrage of information throughout their day. 120 messages on average, in fact. That's a lot of triggers for rising burnout and plummeting productivity. So what can businesses do to break through the noise and actually connect with employees? The solution lies in delivering a smarter employee experience with First Up. First Up is the world's first and only intelligent communication platform. By activating employee and behavioral data across systems, First Up transforms the way companies engage with their employees during the moments that matter most, from hire to retire and everything in between. With hundreds of pre-built templates, First Up empowers communication and HR teams to deliver hyper-personalized employee journeys at scale in a matter of minutes, so that everyone, from your desktop staff to your frontline workers, has the resources they need right at their fingertips. Over 500 organizations around the world, including 40 of the Fortune 100, rely on First Up to build stronger, more productive workforces with 65% higher retention, no more missed opportunities or engagement efforts falling through the cracks. Don't let your employee experience fade into the background noise. Instead, transform it into the backbone of your organization with First Up. Visit firstup.io today to learn more. Now, back to the podcast and our special guest, Dr. Candice Setti. I'm so worried about all the people out there who are now working remotely that they're going to get stuck in this pattern and nobody's going to call them out on it, or they're not going to have a mirror or somebody else to talk to about this. Are you feeling the same thing, Dr. Candice?
I'm seeing it. I see it all the time. I mean, in the current situation, the impact of the pandemic over the last year, stress levels have increased exponentially, work changes have been implemented, and there's been a major increase in self-sabotaging behaviors as a result, not just in the workplace, right? I mean, you definitely see it in the workplace with things like procrastination taking stronger form, things like, assuming and self-attack taking a stronger form, but then also things like social avoidance and emotional eating and all of these other sabotaging behaviors that have come into play as a result of this. So it's coming at you from all angles, and you really need to be on top of it in terms of awareness and focus to make sure that it doesn't get too much of a foothold.
I want to play out a couple of scenarios with you. I'm looking at an employee who routinely self-sabotages, and then I'm looking at an employee who pushes through to thrive. What are the critical differences between these people?
Well, clearly outcome, and that one is thriving. But, behaviorally, that person who's thriving is fighting these tendencies in a way that the original person is not. That person who is thriving and pushing through is most likely engaging in self-questioning, is most likely always looking at the outcomes of their behavior, is very likely fighting back when the drive to self-sabotage comes into play, or their sabotage voice sneaks up in their head and starts talking. And because they're paying attention, because they're self-questioning, because they're fighting back, over time, this process gets easier and easier, and their self-sabotage tendencies get weaker and weaker. So they really are building their capacity to fight. And that original employee who just self-sabotages and lets it happen is not looking at any of that, is not engaging in any of that, is not trying to change it. And that's really the primary difference between those two people. One person is fighting, one person is accepting.
Interesting. I mean, a nuance, but a very important one, obviously. When you sit down with somebody to talk through self-sabotage, what are the first tools you recommend to break the cycle?
Well, we can't really do anything about it unless we know what it is. Not just what it is, but how it's happening, when, where, why, how, what. And so the first thing that you need to do is pay attention to it. And I actually encourage people to track it, like to keep a self-sabotage notebook or, a note in their phone or something where they're tracking it when they hear this voice in their head telling them not to try or not to do something or to put something off, or they're not going to succeed. So why bother? Pay attention to that voice. Not only what is it saying, but how you're responding to it, what behaviors you're engaging in or not engaging in. So you can have, a good, solid understanding of what your self-sabotage really looks like, what that animal looks like. And once you really understand it, understand how it takes hold, the format that it takes, then you can make a plan of attack to address it specifically. So because it's different for everybody, that plan of attack, of course, is going to be different. But if you find it's rooted in negative thinking, things like imposter syndrome or assuming, right, then you can start focusing on your achievements and your capabilities to use that as, facts and data to counteract these negative assumptions. If it's rooted in fear, right, how can you slowly start facing those fears to prove yourself wrong and start building your confidence and your comfort level to be able to keep challenging those fears? But you can't do any of that until you understand what it is, what format it takes, what it looks like, and how it really impacts you.
Well, and you really can't do it alone, can you?
I mean, you can, but just like everything else, it's better with help and support. You have somebody in your life that can help point a spotlight on some of these or give you a differential perspective or be able to help you and remind you to look at it and question it and say, well, is that sabotage? Are you sabotaging yourself? This is something that you should be on the lookout for. It always helps to have that objective external third party looking at it with you.
How do you suggest that people shift out of this subtle mindset of self-sabotage into a success-oriented mindset? Because to your point earlier, Dr. Candace, a lot of people don't know they're doing it. They're not tuning into it.
Well, and even more, they don't know how they do it. They may know they do it, but they don't know how or what form it takes. So obviously, like I just said, it's with that first step of paying attention. But then it's really about shifting your focus to what you want. If you can't pinpoint what you want, then you can't really see how self-sabotage is standing in your way or standing in the way of you achieving that. So it really starts by focusing on your goals. And I always tell people, this is not just focusing on the goal that you want, but why you want it. If you want a promotion, then you need to look deeper at why. What happens when you get the promotion? How do you feel? What changes in your life, right? Really understanding that is crucial to connecting the dots between what you want and your actions, your motivation and your action. So once you have a clear understanding of it, you just need to keep your focus there, right? Remind yourself every day what you are striving to achieve, and then continually ask yourself, is this behavior moving me closer or further from that? Can I look at what I'm actively doing right now and then look at my goals and say, does this move me there or does this move me away from there? And then you can really start to get more of an understanding of how you move towards success as opposed to how you succumb to self-sabotage.
So tell us, how can we change our relationship to success so that we stop shying away from those big moments, right? That could be pivotal in your work life, right? Like things that make you go, gosh, this is going to bring me to a whole nother level career-wise.
Well, changing our relationship with success is probably about not fearing success. I mean, a significant contributor to self-sabotage is the fear of success. And people think that's strange, right? Why would you fear success? Success is what everybody wants. But there are so many other factors that go into that, right? Fear of success can be fueled by insecurity, right? Not believing that you are worth it, not believing you're capable, not believing you're deserving. It can be rooted in what I call the now what effect, which is like, I've wanted this goal for so long, but what happens when I get it? And maybe it doesn't magically solve all the problems that I thought it was going to solve. And then I have to look at this again and I don't really want to. So, there's that fear associated with success there. And then, there's the kind of approach avoidance situation of success where success is not a magic fix. It's not a panacea of perfection, right? There are often negative side effects that come from it as well. Like maybe now you have to work longer hours or there's more pressure associated with whether it be a promotion or some other form of success. There are all these other things that come with achieving that success that are scary that people don't want. And so changing your relationship to the idea of success is about challenging all the fears associated with success and learning how to address those and push through them. But for most people, when fear of success is the driver, it's not enough to just say, I want to succeed. You have to actually challenge the fears because those are what are keeping you rooted in that self-sabotage.
Yeah, no question about it. And tell us, what kind of patterns do we need to create, both individually, organizationally, to replace old patterns at work?
Well, if you're talking about like thinking patterns, I would say probably three things I would focus on. One is, what I've been talking about, which is kind of mindfulness and awareness, really paying attention to our behavior on a positive and a negative front, but really paying attention to what we're doing and why we're doing it, right? What is the driver? Am I moving towards something because I want it? Am I moving away from something because I'm scared of it? Am I talking myself out of it, right? Really paying attention, but then taking that a step further, a second point, which is self-questioning, really looking at what you're doing and what it's about, asking yourself, does this make me happy? Does this make me feel good? Again, does this move me closer or further from what I want? What am I scared of? Right? What are my fears? Can I identify anything about the situation that might be scary or off-putting to myself? And just engaging in that self-questioning. And then probably a third component to that would be challenging yourself. Right? Moving ourselves slowly, very slowly, outside of our comfort zone to understand and appreciate how capable we actually are. I talk a lot with people about the idea of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and the idea of increasing your perception of your capability of being uncomfortable, if that makes sense, right? The idea of believing that you can be uncomfortable, you can be in a foreign situation, you can be in a new situation, environment, whatever it may be, and be comfortable in that discomfort and be okay in that discomfort and even thrive potentially in that discomfort. But the need to believe that you're capable of doing that, to perceive yourself as capable of doing that. And it usually starts with baby steps, right? Really slowly pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone, right? Imagining a circle and taking one tiny little step out and establishing a little footing there so that you do feel comfortable to be able to take another step and build on that success. So challenging yourself to really move outside that comfort zone and find new levels of comfort.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to love about this conversation right now. We're struggling. Let's just get honest, right? And if you're out there and you're part of my Work Trends community, thank you for being here. And we're listening. And please know myself, when I get these doubts that creep up, we all do, and I certainly am not immune. I sometimes say to myself, what is the worst thing that's going to happen? Like, what is the worst? Play out the worst scenario. What is it?
That's a form of challenging cognitive distortions, right? It's about taking ideas in your head and drilling them down to facts and data, rational thought. If you say, what's the worst that can happen? You can actually, it's not suggesting that there's nothing bad that can happen, but what you come up with is going to be rooted in reality. Okay, this would happen and this would be unfortunate. But most of the time in our head, where we're going is significantly worse than what could ever happen in reality. And so when we can look at it in those terms, it becomes a little more approachable and a little less scary.
Dr. Candace, thank you for stopping by today and making our lives just a bit better.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. You can hear all of our Work Trends podcasts on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and beyond. And be sure to subscribe so you can listen on the go and stay up to date on all the latest news you need. Catch up with you next time, and I hope today's information made you wiser, happier, and more informed.